Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining me. This is 𝐸𝐕𝐇𝐋𝐈𝐆𝐇𝐋𝐈𝐆𝐇𝐓𝐒 from CSM Practice, the podcast about everything related to how to reduce churn and provide better engagement to your customers. Today I have Mary Migiano, who's the head of customer success at a company called Compt. It's a company that's leading HR platform. Mary and her team work mainly with HR departments, but I'll let her talk all about her team in a second here so you get some context to what she's done and whether or not this could be a thing that you should try as well. So, first of all, Mary, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
And when you first joined as a head of customer success, I think everybody that joins a new company, they kind of take a look at what's going on, what works, what doesn't. What were some of the things as you were going through your first couple of months that you thought, well, I would like to tackle?
This was actually my first role in customer success working for a SaaS or tech company. So it was very different than anything I'd experienced before. Previous to this role, I was actually leading a team of like customer service type representatives for various companies and things like that. But this role, I actually came into the company working as a CSM myself. So this was an interesting experience that was different than previous roles where I kind of took that step back and was able to see front lines at ground level exactly what that interaction looked like with customers. And it was neat to see from a tech or like an onboarding perspective with software how cool it is and how simplified the process was at Compt. Even though we're a startup, how streamlined processes already were.
Yeah, you mentioned that the software is super easy to learn, super intuitive. So you probably don't have a huge issue with a product adoption.
Yes, you're 100% right. I always say we have the best engineers in the business. We have a great product team that gets it and gets customers and what's important to keeping things simplified. So, yeah, a customer grasping our software doesn't take much, and their users and their employees using the software is a easy and simplified experience for them.
So what a great advantage. You come in and because it's a small team or maybe you're the first CSM, you get some hands-on experience. What are some of the challenges that you were facing? Obviously not product adoption. What was bubbling up for you?
So I'd say it kind of echoes back to not at the time that I started because 2022 is different in the economy than what we're seeing right now. But you had mentioned something at the beginning of the call. Those of us that are in this place in the economy where companies are looking at consolidation and all these different things. So I think as we moved through 2023 and 2024 now that we're in, we're seeing more and more companies do that. And I think any of us in a customer success role, that can be incredibly challenging and difficult to work through when there's not much you can do to change that in some ways. There's certainly things we can do to be proactive and get ahead of certain things and identify red flags and things like that. But it can be challenging when you feel like you're doing everything and sometimes you don't have that ability to save a customer.
What were the changes that you made and why did you make them?
So one of the biggest changes I think is having a consistent like QBR or check-in process. So we've evaluated that and have had multiple iterations since we've brought that a formalized process on board. But that has been a game changer for us because I will tell you, if we do have a customer churn now, it is not a surprise. It's we've had these conversations, we've worked through scenarios with them, we've tried everything, what our product can offer, and all those types of things. That it's not a surprise if for some reason something doesn't work out. We are a company that prides ourselves on transparency. So we have very open conversations with our customers on our product and where our product is headed. So it's great that the process that we've had with QBRs and check-ins have brought us to that next level to kind of become surprise free when it comes to that side of
So
things.
you optimized the QBR. What other changes have you introduced lately?
I'd say about almost a year into my tenure, we decided to switch some platforms. And I think this is where software comes in handy and making sure you're using the right software. So we actually, for our onboarding process, when I came on board to keep us organized, it was just to manage the tasks of the onboarding process. So super helpful for what we needed it for. But what we needed to do was branch out a little bit more. We had bigger needs than that. And it was important that when we were trying to evaluate solutions for like managing customer success tasks and making that easier, to look at all encompassing solutions. And that's where we came across a CSP, or you'll hear them called customer success platforms. So built specifically for customer success teams. And what we're able to then do is capitalize on the use of this software so that my team has one-stop shop to everything we need. Like, we've got easy access to information for our customers. We also have it integrated with our platform, so we've got real-time data when we need it. And then I think all of us can relate to this from the customer success perspective. You're managing so many projects and tasks. I think sometimes we all get anxiety to want to do a great job and want to make sure we're not missing anything. So it's so important that you've got a tool that you can leverage to keep your tasks and projects in check so that you're able to deliver the way you need to for your customers.
Is there anything else that you changed recently that you felt like made a big difference for your team?
I'd say another thing we did was kind of automating our whole renewal process. So our renewal process, we were previously managing on a spreadsheet, which worked for us being a smaller startup company. However, there's a lot of room for manual error there. We go back to seeing if things are missed or things like that. So that's where we leveraged our CSP as well to go ahead and automate that renewal process so that the system tells us exactly what we need to do and when we need to do it. It brings in other partners from our team, like finance and the contract process and things like that. So it's been simplified in giving us a most up-to-date status, but also managing all that administrative work that comes along with the renewal. One of the things that we think is important for the customer experience here at Compt is that right now our team's full stack CSMs. So they have their hands in everything. And that's how we know that they know our product best, they know our customers best, all of our processes best. So that's been super helpful in just making everyone's life easier because we don't have a team that's specialized in that specifically.
Can I ask you, when did you start making these changes? Was it a few months ago or a year ago?
No, about a year ago, we started to make the changes. We're still making changes. And one of those things I would give as a piece of advice that I have to remind myself of being a perfectionist is wanting to deliver this new process that's the best process. But it's so important to get the ball rolling, figure out what is going to be the right process for now, and remember that you can make iterations to it. You're not going to solve for every little thing right now. So take account for all of those things that are the most important, and then you can build on that process as time goes so that you don't discourage yourself or stop yourself from starting or beginning a new process. That makes sense.
It sounds like about a year ago, you had to deal with some surprise churn. Everything was super manual, from onboarding to possibly even renewals. And now you have a one-stop shop, better access to data, better analytics, better data-driven decisions all around you and your team. And the team is way more productive. It's simplified. Collaborating with other teams is way easier. So kudos for you. Maybe what we'll do next is we'll kind of dive into each one of these and sort of break down what you've done, how you've done it, and give everybody some tips on what was going on and what made a difference. So where should we start?
So why don't we go ahead and start with our CSP? So the company that we've decided to opt in for that we found to work well for us so far is Vitally. So they're a great tool and we've got a great partnership with them and just working together to build the right solution. And they're helpful in having a great staff there that can walk us through scenarios or guide us on the right way to set up what we're looking to do.
May I ask, which other solutions have you considered, if you don't mind, and like what made you choose Vitally over others?
You know what? It was such a long time ago. It's hard to remember. And I don't want to quote the wrong name or just in case. So, of course, we looked at typical like task management tools like a Monday.com and ClickUp and things like that before going the CSP route.
So before you were using other solutions and then you moved into Vitally, obviously. Looking back at Vitally, you mentioned there were a few various benefits in taking a team as small as 4 people into using a platform. What were the big changes you've seen after implementing and starting to using a CSP?
I'd say two biggest things. One is the efficiency. So our team has become highly efficient because In a lot of our processes, they don't need to initiate any. That information is coming to them. So I'll give you an example. Say we had a user or an account that had lower product utilization. Instead of us remembering, oh, I've got to go look at all my accounts this month, all of the different utilization metrics and figure out who's an opportunity, now the system tells them that. They don't need to dig into anything. It's going to tell them that. So that's the efficiency piece. And the other big win, I'd say, is the consistency side that comes along with that. A lot of different priorities are out there and happen. So it's easy to miss a month of checking a specific metric, for example. This does it for you again. So you've got that consistency to make sure that it's happening and it's not missed.
As a team manager, what did this enable you?
It allows me to have a much better view of the team's workload as well. As their manager, and I'm sure other managers in customer success can struggle with this sometimes, is it's very hard to know between implementations, renewals coming up, all these things that are out there when you have full stack CSMs, what somebody's workload is. But what a CSP does for you is it gives you the exact visibility you need to set up specific dashboards to know exactly what's on everyone's plate. Like, as an example, I could go in right now and for all of my CSMs, see what tasks or projects are due within the next week. So I know who's best to receive the next implementation, for example, without needing to go ask questions and have a whole conversation about it.
So basically it improves your account assignment decision making?
Or just workload and tasks and projects in general.
Even like internal ones, like,
Yeah.
oh, I want to optimize them.
It's been great to give me to not only visibility to the workload they have right now, but within the CSP for any additional projects that would be like a good to have or a good to get to project that would help our team. Instead of thinking about it once and saying, oh, we don't have time to do that right now, we kind of have like a queue of projects out there that we can work as we need them. So I've got them listed there. And as people have their workload open up or their bandwidth open up, I can just start assigning those projects out there and we know that they're being worked. And then our team's feeling challenged and fulfilled and all those things at the same time.
So improved team morale, improved your ability to manage and assign things more efficiently, improved efficiency and consistency. Let's talk about QBRs and renewal automations. I think one of the things I wanted to understand is what are the changes that you've made in the QBR and the playbooks or the things that you've introduced into the process that you feel like made a difference, took it to the next level?
We've implemented that consistent process, but it's had a couple iterations. In the beginning, we were basing like how we held these QBRs and the frequency of them based solely on ARR for a customer. And then we kind of transitioned because we found it to be better to base it on user count instead. So that way we are targeting the right people based on the amount of employees they have using our platform. When we talk about CSP, what you see on your screen is going to be all about the CSP that we use and how we've automated the process through there. So QBR check in Playbook, basically the account's going to match certain rules. So it's going to check if within the last 90 days it's had their QBR check-in. And then we've also leveraged our CSP to have account health scores and risk statuses. And the CSM takes accountability of keeping that risk status up to date. So it's high, medium, or low. We have found at Compt that CSMs have the best pulse check if somebody's going to churn or not. They know all those red flags and things like that. So we also base our QBR check-in cadence on that status too. If you've got a low-risk customer that is just plugging along using the platform, they don't like to be bothered, that's great. You don't need to talk to them all the time, right? But our larger customers that maybe are a little more high risk, that needs to be a little bit of a different cadence. So that's where we kind of check the ARR and then also work on getting it scheduled and have these tasks created automatically so that we can then engage in our customers and go ahead and schedule out these QBRs and have meaningful conversations. We've developed a very large deck for QBRs and check-ins so that each QBR can be truly customizable and have very valuable information. Every customer is different. What one cares about, the other doesn't care about. So you need to account for that, because if you don't account for that in your QBR check-ins, your customers are going to stop attending them. They're not going to see value in them. And you always want them to feel like that 30 minutes or hour with them is not a waste of time and it's truly valuable.
Out of these five elements, what do you think is making the most difference in getting QBR successful? And how do you define a successful QBR?
The risk status check. So that is going to be the biggest indicator, I'd say, because that's going to determine that frequency piece. And remember a little earlier, I told you that we don't get surprised by churn anymore. It's because of that piece of the process that in these check-ins, say a customer doesn't want to meet with us, it kind of brings that into light and some red flags out to shine so that we can get ahead of these things before it's a customer saying, hey, I want to cancel my account at the end of the contract. That is happening organically, and those conversations are happening earlier so that we could work through any issues like real time throughout the year and really offer any options that we can to try to save them.
How did the process of QBR change or improve before and after having a CSP?
The formal QBR process wasn't initiated with us until we had the CSP. So it's tough to say, but I think what we can say is before the CSP, we would have had to manually manage this process. So on a spreadsheet, someone would have to be going in there checking all the time to make sure that their customers were covered. I think there would be a lot of manual work in determining who needed a QBR and at what time to schedule it. Initially, when I started, our large customers got QBRs that were much larger companies. And what I can tell you back in that time is I was needing to spend a lot of time manually managing that process of remembering which of those customers I needed to reach out to confirm and meet with versus just knowing that it needs to happen based on an update. The struggle I also ran into with that is for me and the way I work, it made the most sense to tackle it all at one time. So I'd then be reaching out to a dozen or 24 customers at one time to schedule a QBR, which becomes difficult because they're all booking out at the same time. Whereas this is a more organic and less time consuming process because it's scattered. And now maybe I've got 2 QBRs a month versus trying to cram them all into a 2 week period.
Are there some customers where the CSM doesn't even meet with, or you trying to meet with every customer at least once a year?
You hit the nail on the head. Yes, every single customer is once a year. Since we are an HR platform, end of year is very important. And the beginning of a calendar year or a benefits year is super important. So at minimum, we touch base with every single customer at least once a year.
Very interesting. So while most companies would try to correlate the QBR sometimes towards renewal date, you're actually trying to tie it to when they're least busy but most keen on getting ready for the next calendar year because regulations might have changed and the company's gearing up for a different budget that might be doing some hiring or whatever HR shenanigans that are going on.
Employee relations issues. The HR world has evolved, right? Now there's people ops teams and things like that. So the way the QBRs are broken up or check-ins is people fall into kind of one of 3 buckets. One, your quarterly business review. You meet with you every quarter. 2, your semi-annual. Twice a year is your sweet spot. And then lastly, those small customers would be the one time per year there.
What was the biggest impact on the team, on customers, on your company since you started doing QBRs?
We've definitely seen our tickets, like our support tickets, drop because I think we're talking about things more proactively and features we offer and how our platform works and things like that. So I'd say that's the biggest thing. And it's funny because you had mentioned earlier with the size of accounts we support that you'd consider us kind of a medium touch company. And I would say with the CSP we have now, it allows us the ability to provide high touch without having like the CSM count of a high touch account deck.
So basically, way more efficient, being able to do a higher touch model with a lower number of staff. So de facto, you increase the industry equivalent of the CSM ratio in the industry. So good for you. Sounds like your coverage has expanded dramatically. So you're able to do more QBRs for a larger customer base, provide higher touch model with less CSMs than what is the equivalent in the industry, and lower churn, lower tickets, increase engagement, increase productivity and predictability. So great initiative right there. And I think it goes in conjunction with the implementation of a CSP, because if you just did QBRs without a customer success platform, this might have been a different conversation.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about the renewal playbook. Did you automate the renewals using your customer success platform, or are you using a different platform for that?
No, we automated it using the customer success platform. So before CSP, this was all managed on a spreadsheet. We'd manually check it and just kind of keep our renewals in check. The challenge there is there's multiple levels and steps depending on the kind of setup the customer has and features and plan they have and all those types of things. So the renewal playbook in the CSP has been a great change because it's removed that need for remembering all these different steps or considering, I'd say, all of the nuances that are out there, which can be challenging. So this same thing kind of as like the QBR check-in playbook, it's going to check for some very specific details, like is the renewal within 90 days? And then we're going to go ahead and have some CSM intervention in there. You have to be certain somebody's kind of looking at very specific information and details because everyone is different. So we kind of do a double check there. And then we also kind of recheck as we get closer. And then we check on whether they have auto renewal or not. And then we create this renewal project that's specific to that specific customer's need. So when you see that little bubble there that says renewal project created, there's more than just one renewal project we've created. We've created, I want to say like 6 or 7 of them, just based on all the different scenarios that could take place. And the value of that is now instead of us going to Slack to ping finance and send emails to say, hey, can you generate this contract for me? This tool does it all for us. So now we've also got a seat for our finance person in Vitally who can now have tasks assigned to her. So once we go through our checks and do everything we need to, hers will automatically generate with a due date so that she can generate all the information on her side. And then what's cool is from a management perspective, obviously contracts are super important. So I'd like to just double check everything at the end if there's a high level of detail that's needed here. So I also don't need to worry about checking anything like manually on my side. I ultimately just get a task myself when everyone else has gone through their pieces to go ahead and just check to make sure everything looks good so that we're ready to re-enter into the next renewal in the following year.
Yeah, so clearly a way more organized process, better collaboration, lots of automation as well. It's like, is the email to the customer 90 days prior being sent automatically, I suppose?
No, we don't send automatically. Our CSP does have that functionality. But I think like with anything, we've kind of hesitated to use it because there's so many variables involved when communicating with customers. What if the customer comes back to me and says, "Oh, I don't want to do X." And then I forget that this automated email is going to go out in 2 days anyway. That can just kind of provide an inconsistent experience. So that's just kind of a challenge there. But we still communicate outside of the CSP with them in email. But our administrative work on this side of things, it's much less than what it was.
Yeah. What do you think is like the ingredients for the secret sauce for improving that renewal playbook for you before and after, kind of when you look at it? What was like the main things that made a difference?
I think it's accounting for every piece of the process. With the CSP, it's ultimately like coding or logic. You need to look at it that way. It's in a much simpler version. Day-to-day user can set it up. But the biggest thing with it is you need to account for everything because you literally need to tell the system logic wise, if this happens, I need you to do this. If this happens, I want you to do this. So it requires for any process that you dig deep to account for every scenario proactively. So that way you can get ahead of it and that no one falls through the cracks and things like that. So I'd say it lets you look at details much more closely because you've got to bring it down to ground level and understand the process inside and out.
How long has it been since you automated the renewal process?
I'd say about a year. That was one of the first things that we did here.
Oh, when you look at the before and after, before you implemented it with a CSP, obviously you were in Excel spreadsheets, and now what was the impact? Are you getting more renewals on time, for example? Are you closing more renewals? There's this churn.
We definitely see more renewals being confirmed faster just because we have all the details and the exact visibility. And we've definitely seen our churn reduce so far this year. And then, like I said, those customers that may have churned during the year, we knew about. It's not kind of a surprise thing that's happening. And I think that's hand in hand with that QBR check in process that's out there.
Mary, I know this was your first job as a head of CS. What are some resources that helped you summon up the courage and coming up with some good ideas to lead the team to the path that you're on at the moment? You read any books that you'd like to recommend or any other resource that you'd like to mention?
One, like your podcast, just staying relevant with updates, also connecting with others in the customer success field in LinkedIn and seeing their thought leadership posts and things that are out there, and just staying ahead of the curve there. One of the things I've seen change generationally that I'm loving is I'm a millennial, so I started my career out 20 years ago. And the shift I've seen that's so awesome is that we're shifting from being a culture of I work for this company, everything is proprietary, and I've got to save all this good information to myself, to now we're becoming a culture that everyone can win together. We could work for competitors, but we've got the same problem, so let's help each other out, right? We're all trying to accomplish the same thing. We can both be on the same playing field and work together. And it's great to see that evolution. I think just staying connected to others and not feeling like your competition or things like that is a really key point.
Yeah, I love the sense of community, sense of abundance, sense of collaboration. I think it's also very unique to customer success, not just a certain generation, but definitely very unique to customer success. So a lot of people love being in this profession because of the sense of community. We're all building this and growing into a better strategy together.
Yeah, absolutely. So much so I just created in the next couple of weeks it will start a customer success meetup where I'm just going to kind of put a bi-monthly call together where all of us can get on a call, talk about what's going on, issues that might be out there, brainstorm together and see how we can help each other too.
As a prep for our call, you recommended a certain podcast, Lifetime Value Show.
Yeah, so Lifetime Value has this great podcast for customer success specifically. It's called the Daily Stand Ups. I had the chance to take part in it. It's a 15-minute daily podcast. So you get your quick dose of something that's going on in customer success. Literally, the guests are just joining to say, what's on my mind in customer success? So it's cool because it's relevant to all of us, but those guys are hilarious. So I think it's just a great time to learn something or just hear more about customer success, to see what's going on everyone's minds in the industry. So check it out. They're a great group of guys.
Thank you so much, Mary. So wonderful. I appreciate you coming on the show and sharing how are you rocking your world and your team's world and your customers' world. Definitely QBRs and renewal automations and leveraging technologies are always interesting in considerations when we do customer success, when we want to scale. I got to say, it was particularly interesting for me because your team is relatively small and it's a high touch model. And a lot of times people ask themselves, should I invest in a customer success platform if my team is so small? But I think you clearly outlined the ROI and the impact that it has on your team. So if anybody was listening today and they're still having any hesitations, I think they have a little bit more courage to explore that further.
Yeah, and like you said, we're all helpers in the CS industry. So if someone's got questions, find me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to answer. If you've got a specific use case, you want to see if it makes sense for a CSP, I'm happy to chat and see if it might work well.
Awesome. All right. And with that, it's a wrap. And I'll see you on the next episode.